I'm 34 and currently in the middle of the worst kind of nightmare a parent can have. My ex-husband and I share custody of our 9-year-old daughter, Eliza. We divorced 4 years ago, and while things weren't exactly friendly, we always tried to keep it civil for her sake. We have a court-ordered custody agreement, week on, week off, and until recently, we stuck to it without many problems. But last Sunday, something happened that changed everything. I dropped Eliza off at her dad's place like I always do. She was wearing her favorite purple hoodie, carrying a backpack full of books and her sketch pad. She waved goodbye from the porch, like she always does, and I drove off without a second thought. 3 days later, I got a call from her school, asking why she hadn't been there all week. That call nearly stopped my heart. At first, I thought they'd made a mistake. Maybe my ex just forgot to call in her absence. I figured she must be sick or something. So I called him, and he didn't answer. That's when the panic set in. I called again, and again. No reply. I texted. Nothing. I called his girlfriend. He's been living with her for over a year, and she picked up after one ring. When I asked where Eliza was, her voice went quiet. She sounded like she was fumbling for words, then told me I should just come over. I didn't even hang up. I just threw my keys in my bag and drove straight there. What I found when I got to the house? That's when everything fell apart. When I pulled into the driveway, his girlfriend was already standing at the door, arms crossed, face pale. I didn't wait for her to speak. I just pushed past her and called out for Eliza. No answer. I checked the living room. Her backpack wasn't there. No shoes by the door. Her coat was missing from the rack. That little purple hoodie she loved? Nowhere to be seen. I turned to the girlfriend, her name's Marissa, and demanded she tell me where Eliza was. She just kept saying, "He said he had it handled," over and over again, like some kind of broken record. I didn't understand. Handled what? That's when she finally admitted it. My ex had left. With Eliza. 3 days ago. No explanation. No warning. No call. No message. No nothing. Just packed up a bag for Eliza and told Marissa they were going on a little trip. She assumed I knew. She assumed it was part of our arrangement. He didn't tell her where he was going. He didn't tell anyone. And just like that, I realized I had no idea where my daughter was. I called the police immediately. They took it seriously right away, thank God. But because he has shared custody, it wasn't considered a kidnapping. Not yet. They said they had to follow procedure. File a missing persons report. Check for activity on his phone. Contact his job. All the usual steps. Meanwhile, I was spiraling. Because here's the part that makes it all worse. He's done something like this before. Not with Eliza. But back when we were married, he used to disappear sometimes. Just vanish for a few days. No calls, no texts. Always came back with some excuse about needing space, needing to clear his head. And I always forgave him. But he never took Eliza before. Never. Now I can't stop thinking, what if he's not just having some emotional episode? What if he's running? What if he's planning to take her and never come back? Or worse, I haven't slept since Tuesday. I can't eat. I've been refreshing my phone constantly, praying for a text, a missed call, anything that tells me she's okay. But there's been nothing. Just silence. And a growing sick feeling in my gut that something is terribly, terribly wrong. The police started with the basics, called his job, checked traffic cams near his house, even pinged his last known cell tower. But everything led to a dead end. He hadn't shown up at work since Monday. He hadn't called in. No one had seen or heard from him. His phone? Off. Completely dead. No recent purchases on his cards. No toll booth activity. No hotel check-ins. It was like he and Eliza had disappeared into thin air. I started reaching out to everyone. His friends, his old co-workers, even his estranged sister in Oregon, who he hadn't spoken to in 2 years. No one knew anything. Some were shocked. Others just shrugged like they'd seen it coming. One of them let something slip that chilled me to the core. Apparently, a few months ago, my ex had started talking about starting over. He said he was tired of being stuck, tired of being monitored, tired of custody agreements and co-parenting stress. I remember he used to say things like that to me too, back when we were married, but I never took it seriously. I thought he was just venting. Now I'm not so sure. I started to think about everything I'd missed. The little signs, like how he got rid of his social media a few weeks ago, how he suddenly wanted to switch weekends, saying it was better for his schedule, how he started asking Eliza strange questions about school, like if anyone ever asked her personal stuff, or if she'd ever wanted to move somewhere else. She told me about it in passing. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now, it all feels like a setup. The cops were still calling it a custody dispute at this point. They said that because he had legal custody, there wasn't much they could do, yet, but they'd opened a case. A detective had been assigned, and they promised to keep me updated. Still, no updates were coming. Every hour felt like a year. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time it didn't, I crumbled a little more. I started sleeping on the couch with the porch light on, just in case he brought her back in the middle of the night. I left my front door unlocked one night, thinking maybe that would somehow make it easier for her to come home. I know that sounds crazy, but when your child is missing, nothing feels crazy anymore. Then, just when I thought I was going to lose my mind entirely, I got a call from a blocked number. I picked up on the first ring, and all I heard was someone breathing. That breathing, it was slow, steady, almost like someone trying to decide whether or not to speak. I whispered, "Eliza?" No response. Then the line went dead. I stared at my phone, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I tried calling the number back, but of course, it was blocked. Nothing. I reported it to the detective right away. He said it might have been a prank, or my ex testing the waters. Either way, they started pulling phone records. But that would take time. Too much time. I was losing it. The not knowing was clawing at me every second of the day. I couldn't work. I couldn't think. I felt like I was slipping into some alternate reality where every person on the street might be him, where every little girl in a purple hoodie might be Eliza. Then, 2 nights later, something else happened. At around 2 a.m., I heard a knock at my front door. Not the doorbell. A soft, rhythmic knock. I jumped off the couch and ran to the door, heart pounding, praying it was her. But when I opened it, no one was there. Just an envelope on the doormat. I grabbed it and slammed the door behind me, locked every bolt, and sat down on the floor to open it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 4 words written in thick black marker. "She's safe. Trust me." No name, no signature, no return address. Just that message, like it was supposed to calm me down. It didn't. It made everything worse. Because if he really wanted me to trust him, he would have picked up the damn phone. Let me hear her voice. Sent a photo. Anything. But this was a mind game. A cruel one. The police took the note into evidence, but there were no fingerprints. Not even his. The handwriting didn't match anything they had on file. The detective said it could mean she was okay, or it could be a decoy, to buy time, to throw me off. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat in Eliza's room, holding one of her stuffed animals, thinking about how scared she must be, wondering if she knew I was looking for her, wondering if she thought I had abandoned her, wondering if I was ever going to see her again. By the 5th day, I was barely functioning. I hadn't changed clothes. I couldn't eat more than a few bites of toast. I kept calling his number even though I knew it was off. I left voicemails anyway, just in case. I said her name over and over, told her I loved her, told her I was coming, that I'd never stop looking. The detective tried to keep me grounded. He said these things don't always end badly, that sometimes a parent panics and runs, thinking they're doing the right thing. But he also admitted something that turned my blood cold. He said my ex had emptied out his savings account 2 days before he vanished, sold his car for cash, transferred the title and handed over the keys to a stranger. The guy who bought it didn't even ask questions, just handed over an envelope and drove off. This wasn't a spontaneous trip. This was planned. I knew then that he hadn't just snapped. He meant to disappear. He'd been planning this for weeks, maybe longer. And whatever story he'd told Eliza, she must have believed it. She trusted him. He was her dad. Why wouldn't she? What's worse is, I started doubting myself. I kept wondering if I'd missed something. Did I push too hard in court? Did I make him feel cornered? Was I too controlling with the custody schedule? Too rigid? I hated that those thoughts crept in, because no matter what our issues were, you don't take a child and vanish off the grid. Then, finally, a lead. Late that afternoon, the detective called. One of my ex's credit cards, which we thought he had canceled, had been used at a gas station 2 states over. Security footage confirmed it. It was him, and Eliza was with him. She looked okay in the video. Tired, maybe, but unharmed. She had her little unicorn backpack, and he was holding her hand as they walked into the store. He bought snacks. A soda. Nothing alarming. They left 10 minutes later, and that was it. But that image of her, so close, so normal looking, it broke me. Because it meant she was out there, alive. And that also meant I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. Something was very wrong. The detective put out a nationwide alert. Said this gave them enough grounds to consider it a custodial abduction now that he crossed state lines and hadn't responded to court-ordered communications. But I didn't feel relieved. If anything, I felt worse. Because now he was desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. That night I started packing a bag. I didn't even know where I was going. I just couldn't sit still anymore. I needed to move. To do something. Waiting for news was killing me. Every hour that passed felt like time she was slipping further away. The detective had given me the name of the town where the gas station was located, about a 6-hour drive from here. He told me not to go, said I'd just get in the way of the investigation. But I didn't care. I printed out every photo I had of Eliza and stuffed them into a folder. I packed extra clothes, water, snacks, and charged my phone fully. I wrote a note for my neighbor, just in case. Locked up the house and drove off around midnight. I made it to the town just before sunrise. It was small, one of those places with a single traffic light and a row of gas stations along the highway. I went to the one from the footage first. Asked if anyone had seen them. The cashier said yes. He remembered a man and a little girl coming in 2 nights ago. Said they looked tired but calm. Then he said something that nearly stopped my heart. He said the girl had asked if they were going to the cabin soon. I didn't even blink. I knew exactly what cabin she meant. It was my ex's grandfather's old place, way out in the woods. We hadn't been there since before Eliza turned 5. It wasn't even in his name. It was left to a cousin, and last we heard, it hadn't been used in years. But suddenly, it made sense. No cell service, no neighbors, no traffic. The perfect place to vanish. I called the detective, breathless, and told him everything. He promised to send the local authorities right away. Told me to stay where I was. But I didn't. I got back in my car and started driving, because I had to see for myself. The road to the cabin was worse than I remembered. Nothing but dirt, mud, and overgrown branches smacking the windshield. I hadn't been out there in nearly 6 years, but my hands remembered the turns like muscle memory. My heart was racing the whole time. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting someone to be following me, or worse, waiting for me. By the time I saw the cabin through the trees, the sun was fully up. His truck was there, parked haphazardly behind the trees, partly covered with a blue tarp that didn't do much to hide it. Like he knew people would come looking, but couldn't bring himself to actually leave. I parked far enough away to stay out of sight and crept up on foot. My shoes sank into the mud with every step. The forest was dead silent. Not even birds. Just wind, and the creak of the old boards on the porch as I got closer. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't have backup. I didn't have a plan. But I had to see her. When I reached the side window, I peeked through the gap in the curtains. And there she was, Eliza, sitting cross-legged on the floor, coloring, still in her purple hoodie, hair a little messy, but otherwise, okay, alive, breathing. I could barely hold back the sob that rose in my chest. But she wasn't alone. My ex was sitting in a chair just a few feet away, staring blankly at the wall. He looked wrecked, unshaven, bags under his eyes, like a man coming undone. And then, suddenly, he stood up, walked toward her, and said something I couldn't hear. She looked up at him and nodded slowly. Then she reached for her bag, like they were about to leave. That's when I panicked. I bolted around the cabin, heart in my throat, and banged on the front door like my life depended on it. The second my fist hit the door, I heard movement inside. Scraping wood, hurried footsteps, and then silence. "Eliza!" I shouted her name so loud it echoed through the trees. There was no response. I kept pounding. "It's Mom! Eliza, baby! I'm here! I'm here!" Then, finally, I heard it. The lock clicking. The door creaked open just an inch, and her face appeared. Tear-streaked, confused. But her. We just stared at each other for a second. Then she flew into my arms with such force I nearly fell backward off the porch. I wrapped my arms around her like I'd never let go again. I was sobbing. Ugly, shaking sobs I couldn't control. And she kept whispering, "I knew you'd come. I knew you'd find me." I looked past her, into the cabin. He was standing in the hallway, frozen, pale, silent. We locked eyes, and for the first time, I saw what was really there. Not anger, not malice, but emptiness. He wasn't well. He hadn't been for a long time. Maybe I had ignored it. Maybe he'd hidden it too well. But now, he looked like a man completely lost. I didn't say a word to him. I just picked Eliza up, her backpack and all, and carried her down the porch as flashing lights lit up the trees behind us. 2 sheriff's cruisers and the detective's SUV pulled up just as we reached the road. They took it from there. He didn't resist, didn't speak, didn't even flinch when they put him in the back of the cruiser. I heard later he was placed under psychiatric evaluation instead of jail, at least for now. They're still deciding whether to press charges. The court system is complicated when it comes to things like this, especially when mental health is involved. I don't care about that right now. All I care about is Eliza. She's safe. She's home. It's been 3 weeks since I brought her back. She's sleeping in my bed every night. She won't go anywhere without holding my hand. She hasn't said much about what happened during those days, and I'm not pushing. I'll wait for her to talk when she's ready. Right now, all she needs to know is, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. As for me, I'm still shaken, still struggling with the what-ifs, still waking up in a cold sweat at 3 a.m., checking to make sure she's still next to me. But we're together. We're healing. And that's enough. For now. If you're a parent, hug your kid tonight. You never think this kind of thing will happen to you. Until it does. And then you live every day thankful that somehow you got them back.